All right, so as I was mentioning, this is Matrix 301. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Matrix 301 is the third in a series of Matrix classes. In the first class, we go through basic setup. In the second class, we dive into searches and some of the details that go along with the searches, as well as the market watch and the hot sheets. And then in the third class, which is this morning right now, we will go over the CMA that can be created in Matrix. That's the comparative market analysis. However, I won't be going over all the details of how you should search or select comparables. We have an entire class dedicated to that. It's called the CMA Workshop. And we already have recordings of that posted for you on YouTube and on Miami Realtors Live. And I'll be sure to give you all of that information in the chat again at the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and then when I've gone through Matrix 301, at the end of the presentation, I'll go ahead and I'll tackle that. So to get started, we are going to log into the Miami Gateway. We're going to go ahead and look for those gateway links that are on the website on miamirealtors.com. You've got one at the top, you have one that scrolls through the center, and then you have one right beneath that center scroll. Once your gateway launches, you do have Matrix in the first or second row. Go ahead and locate it, click on it, and launch. So in Matrix 301, we will be going through the CMA, again, not through the process of searching or selecting comparables. Specifically, I'm going through what the report looks like in Matrix, how to edit the report, and how to make it your own. We have a CMA workshop, highly recommend. All right, so we will be going through the CMA. So we will be creating the CMA in Matrix. We will go through stats, and I will show you some reports that you can create in Matrix for statistics to analyze your market as well. So we're going to start with the CMA. Let's go ahead, and there are two different ways that you can initiate or start a CMA. You can go ahead through the option that says My Matrix and just click on the option that says My CMAs. So there's two different entries, I guess you could say, or two different starting points to get to the same tool. And the first one would be My Matrix, and then you click on My CMAs. Here I have a list of my CMAs, and I have quite a few CMAs. They are supposedly housed here for 180 days, but I have CMAs that are a few years old and they're still there. So you don't have to worry about that. But at the very bottom of the screen, you have three buttons. One that says Start a New CMA, which is how we're going to start our CMA this morning. And then you have two buttons that are deactivated. And if you haven't created CMAs, you may not be able to use these because you have nothing to select. But if I were to select a report, this allows me to copy the selected CMA in case I want to duplicate it and make modifications to the copy, so I can keep my original and my new versions. And then you also have the option to delete the CMA. Please remember that when you delete things in Matrix, that's a permanent action. So whether it's a contact, a report, a search, once you delete something in Matrix, there is no recovering whatever you just deleted. We're going to start with the option or the button that says Start a New CMA. It's got a green plus symbol. You'll go ahead and click on that, and it will bring you into a section of Matrix where basically walks you step by step. So from here we have different tabs for the steps in the process. And then as you go through the process, you'll notice that it says auto saved. So it will save what you're doing as you go through. In any case, if you'd like to just kind of make sure it is saving, you can always just click on the disk and save your process manually, but it does happen automatically. In the Start tab, you have the option to add a contact in case you have not saved the person that you're creating this report for as a contact. We always recommend that you save your contacts or create your customers as contacts in Matrix so that Matrix can keep track of everything that you're doing for that person. So remember, there is a history with Matrix in the contact manager. So from the drop down, I have the list of contacts that I've previously created and saved. I have two language options, English and Spanish. And then in the description, we always recommend that you add the property address. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick one of my options. Let's say Dan Marino. I'm leaving the report language as English. In the description, I'm going to go ahead and type out my subject property address. So I picked a random closed sale from the MLS, and this is an open field without character limits, so you can go ahead and you can write whatever description you'd like. We recommend that you add the address because as you create reports and you have a long list of reports, at a glance you'll see where the property was located and who the report was created for. So it makes it a little easier to keep yourself organized. Once we're done with the start, we can move on to the pages. So you should have every section that's listed on the left-hand side except My Custom Pages. My Custom Pages will pop up once you have managed or uploaded custom pages, and that option can be found in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. What this allows you to do is upload PDFs of your choosing, whether it's marketing materials from your office, maybe it's comparables that you found elsewhere. So one of the things that I like to show you in the CMA workshop class that I mentioned earlier is I like to show you how to go into IMAP and pull comparables from IMAP, how to download that as a PDF and insert that PDF into your matrix report so that you have your comparables from matrix as well as comparables from IMAP, which would be sales that were recorded but not necessarily through an agent, that occurred without a real estate agent. So custom pages, that section will only populate or appear once you have started to upload your own PDFs, and you can only upload PDFs. But you should have everything else, which is cover, subject adjustments, comparables, static, and map. If you click on the small plus sign that each of these has located on the left-hand side or to the left of each title, you'll see that it opens up and it'll show you what your options are within each category. Unfortunately, there's no way to preview the pages, so what I do is I'm going to go ahead and add all of the pages that are available into the report, and then at the end when we have a final product, I'll go through and I'll show you and preview what those are. We can always come back and edit and remove pages. Also, once you've found a combination of pages that you like to use in your reports, you can set those as a default, or you can restore system defaults and go back to what the system originally had in here. And then of course you can clear everything out if you kind of want to start from scratch. So to add a single individual page, you would click on the page itself, but I'm going to add all of the pages, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the categories, and that's going to add everything that exists within each category. Okay, so I've added all of the pages that are available from Matrix so that at the end I can show you what those look like. And once you're done adding your pages, you'll notice, if you hadn't noticed before, some of the buttons in the top were deactivated. And that's because they're attached to some of the pages that the system has provided. So as long as you've added the page that corresponds with that tab, it'll go ahead and light up and be activated. Next to pages, we have subject. And that's where we bring in the information for the subject property. You have three options here. Either you type in everything manually, you use an old MLS number and have the system basically copy and paste the information into the report for you. Or if you haven't found the property or you haven't searched for it, you can actually run a search on the spot using the third option. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to search the system from within the report to find the subject property. If you cannot locate the subject property on Matrix, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It just means it hasn't been listed in the MLS in the last 10 years. Our MLS digitally in Matrix has information for the last 10 to 12 years. So if you don't find it there, then your only option would be to fill everything in manually using information from the tax record. So you can just open that on another screen or print it out and go ahead and fill this out. It's just for the purposes of the report anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and search the MLS using the last option, and I'm going to see if my subject property has been listed. First thing I'm going to do is on the left hand side, active is always marked or selected. I'm going to take that check mark off, and then in the center column I'm going to plug in the address. So with Matrix, less is more, and so when it comes to the street name, even though this property is on 21st Terrace, I won't add the ST or the terrace or TER, and that's because sometimes listing agents will enter things and write everything out. Some of them will use the abbreviations, and Matrix will only show you exactly what you ask of it. So it limits your results in that sense. So in Matrix, less is more. If you've ever tried to use the speed bar, which I'll also show you some of that today, if you've ever tried to use the speed bar in the past and have received an error or seen an error, it's usually because we've added additional information that it doesn't like. So with addresses, less is more, and when I scroll down, I see that I have 4 matches. I click on the results, and my subject property has been listed 4 separate times in the MLS. When you see that your property has been listed multiple times, when the subject property appears multiple times the way that this one did, the most recent of those listings is the very first one. So it's in chronological order with the most recent at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to say fill from selected. So it's taken the information from that old listing and it's plugged it into my report. And again, it's okay because this is just for a report I'm creating for a specific customer. It also brings in the remarks, but you can actually delete those, edit them, rewrite them. You can go ahead and you can upload a different picture or edit the picture. And then once you're done reviewing everything, you can move on to the cover sheet. So after subject, I have the cover. And this is going to, again, have the subject property. This is the information that shows up on that very first page. So I have a picture of the property, I have the contact information for the customer, and I have my information. We go over how to set up your agent information in Matrix 101, but just in case you forgot where that is, it is under My Matrix, My Information. There's a tab that says CMA Cover Sheet. You can also edit from here, and it'll kind of take you away for a second so that you can fix things and come back. And you can also override your information. It's a one-time override in case you want to add or remove certain things for this case. We can finish filling out the customer's information with the property address, and then we can move on to selecting the comparables. Again, I am not going to show you how to select comparables. I'm just gonna give you the basic criteria as outlined by the Pricing Strategy Advisor certification. And then I'm just going to randomly check off a few properties and move on with the process. To dive more into the process of searching for comparables and selecting comparables, again, I would recommend that CMA workshop class I mentioned. Next to cover, I have comparables. And you have 2 options here. You can either add from listings, which would lead us into a search, and we would search the system for comparables, or you can add from cart. Again, you may not be using this feature, so you may have forgotten it's there, but carts basically act as folders, and you can create various folders per customer and store specific listings or properties in those folders to be used or sent or shared at a later date. I'm going to go ahead and add from listings. I'm going to jump into a search. And I'm going to make sure to clear everything out because it still has the information from the last search when I was looking for the subject property. So at the bottom, I'm going to click on clear. We should be searching for a combination of active and closed sales from the last 6 months. Excuse me. But some agents like to include pending sales. And so if we're going to add pending, we should also include active with contract. It is a single family property, so we need to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. So we're going to specify single family, single. And for single family and townhouses, we are going to search within half a mile of the property. If it's a condo, you're going to search within the same building. So I'm going to use, because it's single family, this map search. And I'm going to change that 0.25 to 0.5. And where it says miles of in that field, I'm going to plug in the address. Now, be mindful of the fact that most browsers try to store information for you to pull it up with ease in the future. And if you use that feature in Matrix, it usually doesn't recognize the values that you were inputting. Specifically here in the map search, once you enter the address or part of the address, you need to hit enter on your keyboard. And you need to select from the drop down that says, did you mean? If you notice, there's a phrase that says no map selected. I need that to change. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that address that they suggested, and it says map area selected in red. If this phrase doesn't change, the system has not located your property, and therefore it doesn't know where to draw the radius. So we need to always make sure that that phrase changes. You're always going to use that drop down that says, did you mean? This property has 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, so I'm going to go ahead and start with that. and it has about 1,100 square feet. So I'm going to go ahead and for the living area, I'm going to look for properties that are similar in size as well. I'm going to calculate a 20% range, meaning, let me pull up my calculator because this is really easy to understand when you see it. If I just say it, it doesn't always make sense. So it has 1,100 square feet, and when I multiply that by 0.2 for 20%, I get 220. Once I have that 20%, and if it's a condo, it's 10%, I'm going to take that 1,100 and I'm going to subtract the 220, and I get 880. I get 1,100, and I put, or add the 220, and I get 1,320. So I'm going to search for properties that are similar in features, close to the property, the subject property, so proximity, and also similar in size. So that would be 880 to 1,320. So I'm just going to put, 800 to 1,300. You can be specific and put that 880 to 1,320. But I have about 6 matches. So at the bottom of the screen, I see I have 6 matches. According to the pricing strategy advisor, you should be looking for 3 to 4 really good comparables, and it should be a mix of statuses. So if I have 6, the likelihood that half or a little more than half of those results would be valid comparables is kind of slim. So you can start to adjust your criteria. You can search for sales in the last year. You can search for properties that have an additional bedroom and bathroom and then make adjustments later on. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch that out to a year, and I've got 10 matches. Great. I'm going to go into the results. And again, I am not going to select these with any sort of rhyme or reason. We talk about this more in that CMA workshop. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pick 2, 4, 6, and be done with it. Okay. So I've got my 3 selected. I'm ready to move on with the process. At the bottom, it says add selected. It's a blue button. I click on add selected. It's going to leave behind those properties that I checked off, and it's going to remove the others. After comparables, I have the map, and that's just to kind of make sure that it isn't on the other side of like some expressway. I have one that's on the other side of what looks to be probably 27th Avenue. And I can remove it, go back, find another one, or I can leave it. It's not too far. But sometimes you have properties that are like on the other side of a canal, or maybe they're on the other side of like I-95, and you don't want to include something that belongs to a whole other neighborhood. You can go ahead, back to comparables, remove it, and find some more. Once you've double checked the map, you can go into your adjustments, and adjustments exist for you to do just that, adjust your comparables. Sometimes you have to pick comparables that are close or similar, but they're not, but they've got, they're not perfect. They've got something additional, or they're lacking something, in which case you need to adjust the prices so that you can level the playing field. And to adjust prices here, you would just go through these columns, and as you make adjustments on the left-hand side where it says price and adjusted price, you'll see those adjustments made. So for example, my subject property has a half bath, but my comparables do not. I would need to add value to go ahead and boost that. Because they're lacking something. They have less. So I can go ahead and add value. Let's say a half bath is worth $10,000. I would simply type in 10,000, and it's going to boost those prices $10,000. If I needed to deduct value at any point, you would do the same thing, but just with a minus symbol. So again, to add value, you go ahead and you plug in the number. If you want to reduce or subtract value, you would put a minus and go ahead and subtract that value. Again, what you see in price is what was originally listed as the price or the closed sale, and then adjusted price would be dependent upon the adjustments that you made. If I go into pricing, I now see a breakdown of the low, median, average, and high. I see the comparable prices as they were in comparison to the adjusted prices based on the adjustments that we just made. And then based on these numbers, I can create a suggested list price range. We recommend a range because you upfront are having that conversation. Hey, if this doesn't sell in a month, we may need to reduce it because this is the window that I think we can work with. Whereas if you suggest a specific list price without any conversation or any range, you might be limiting yourself slightly. And at the end of the day, it is entirely up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and create my range. I always look at the average and the median, and I kind of look here and I see like the lowest number is almost at 370, the highest number is at 390. Maybe I want to go from 370 to 385. Or maybe I want to go from, 365 to 380. I would say try to keep your ranges at less than $20,000. Otherwise, it's too much of a range. It's too generalized at that point. So you plug in your price or your price range where it says suggested list price, and where it says notes, you have space for 1,000 characters. That's almost 5 paragraphs worth of information. So if you really wanted to explain how you went through the process, where you got your comparables, why you selected them, what adjustments had to be made, any explanation can be added into notes. And then when you are done, you click on finish. All right. So what you see here is a summary. We have our CMA summary, which is 2 buttons. You can view the CMA, you can email the CMA. We have the little subject details. We have a summary of the pages we selected, and at the bottom we have a summary of the comparables that we selected. I'm going to go ahead and click on view CMA and give it a second to load. All right. So remember, I added every available page from Matrix so that I at the end can show you what each of those pages looks like and the information that's on each page. So you have 2 different cover sheets. You have your cover sheet and you have what they call cover sheet with photo. The biggest difference is that the cover sheet with photo has a border and a background design that kind of matches the rest of the color scheme for the report. You have your summary of comparable listings, which breaks it down by status. And then at the bottom of this table, you see your low, median, average, and high. You have your price adjustments, which are presented in column format. And what they do is at the bottom, they go ahead and they place the number or the total for the adjustments. They don't itemize it, so you're not going to see line items that say $10,000 were added or removed because of a half bathroom. It's just going to have a number. After your price adjustments, you have your list price versus your sale price. You have a little bar graph, and you also have yet another table. So you don't need all of these pages. A lot of the information is repetitive. It's just in different formats. So this also has a table in conjunction with the bar graph. You have your CMA Pro report, which has each of the comparables with the remarks for those comparables. And then it also has bar graphs by status. And then it'll kind of put everything all together in a bar graph and table. You have your pricing recommendation, and any notes you would have included would be in this blank space right beneath it. They go ahead and they insert that price range or that recommendation in this little paragraph. And then they have the static sheets. Static sheets are there for you to have conversations with the customer in case you need to address certain things. So they have one for activity versus timing, your guarantee as a realtor, the effect of overpricing, the benefits of using a realtor, really nice to use with your for sale by owners, the importance of pricing, setting the price, the pitfalls of overpricing, where the commission goes, sources of buyers, steps to a positive showing, and what it takes to show a property. And then at the end, I have my map. So this is about, it's 26 pages of information. Your report does not need to be 26 pages long. What you can do is we can go back now and reduce this because we don't need it to be this lengthy. So I can actually close the report. It opens in another tab, and I can click on pages. And to remove a page, let's say I want to remove the cover sheet, you can click on it and then click on the X that's to the right hand side of it, or you can double click on the page. So if I don't want the summary list, I can remove that. And I'm going to go ahead and leave behind a little set of pages that I would recommend in case you would like to see a recommendation. And remember that once you've selected your pages, you can set them as a default. So you don't have to repeat the process every time you create a report. You can just go ahead and have it waiting for you. All right, now, Once you're done with this, again, you can let it auto save, or you can click on the little disc and save what you worked on. All of your CMAs will be housed under My Matrix, My CMAs. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just rearrange these because I have quite a few of them. There they are. So you'll see the description, which, as I said, I recommend that you place the subject property address in the description. The contact name usually always says cross property, when you created it and when you last modified it. If you click on the report, you have the option of editing from within that list of details. You can view the CMA again, you can email it, or you can delete it. And then don't forget that you have your buttons at the bottom, which allow you to copy the report or delete the selected CMA. So that was the first starting point, or the first way to create a report. I'm going to go ahead and show you the second way. I'm not going to go through the process of creating the report all over again, but I do want to show you where else you can go to create the report. And I want to show you a smaller, more condensed report that you might want to use for yourself or for your customer. It's just numbers. It doesn't have any of the additional pages. So the other way you can create a CMA is you can hover over search, go straight into your search, and plug in all the criteria that we had discussed earlier. So active, active with contract, closed sale, pending sale. I already know that we had to stretch this from 180 to 365. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Single family, single. And we had said within half a mile of the property. You see how Google wants to bring it up? I'm using Google Chrome. If I were to select this from that little Google suggestion, you see how it still says no map selected? I need to make sure that I tap or click, depending on what you're using, on where it says did you mean, in order for that to change. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and I'm going to go ahead and plug in the living area. All right, so you run your search instead of going to the CMAs. You run your search, you pick your comparables. So I'm going to go ahead and just tap on a few. And once you've picked your comparables, at the bottom where you have all of your actions, there's a button that says CMA. So you can actually just go into the system, jump straight into a search, select your comparables, and then go ahead and tap on CMA, and it takes you right back into the process of creating a CMA. Now, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. There's a little red X on the right hand side. And I'm going to show you, if you don't need a really long report that's, 15, 20 pages long, and you need something quick, maybe for yourself, maybe you're working for an investor who doesn't need all those extra pages and is just interested in the calculations or the bottom line. Instead of going ahead and creating a whole CMA report, a whole listing presentation, you can come in here and let me pick a few more. You can come in here and instead of going into CMA, to the left of CMA it says print. And we often forget that print is for reports that you can print or email to your customer. So I'm going to go ahead into print, and there is a report that you can use to condense CMA. And it is almost at the bottom of that list of options. It's called the CMA one-line summary report. If I choose that report, I'm going to go ahead and just open it up so you can see it. You can email this, you can print it, you can save it. It's going to have a table, and it's just one page, depending on how many properties you select. Sometimes it's 1 to 2 pages, but I see that I have one active, and I have the averages, and then I have the closed sales and the averages, and at the bottom I have the grand totals with the averages of everything. The only thing is that with this report, I can't make adjustments. Okay, so I can use this and it's just raw data, whereas in the listing presentation, I can tweak and fine tune those adjustments and those comparables. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close this report. I'm gonna go back home. So we've just discussed the CMA, the 2 different ways to start a CMA, which is by going to My Matrix, My CMAs, and clicking on the start button, or jumping straight into a search, picking your comparables, and clicking on the CMA button at the bottom. We also just discussed the CMA one line. I'd like to go ahead and talk to you a little bit about statistics that you can pull from Matrix to analyze your market. So if you, on the top or along the floating menu bar, if you were to click on stats, they have some system presets. So system presets are basically templates created by Matrix that you can use, but you can actually click on customize and create your own. And anything that you create, as long as you save it, would be listed under my presets. So if you notice, I have a list of system presets and a list of my presets. So in system presets, you have, ADOM, which is average days on market versus the list price median, the historic count of active listings, the historic sales by year. So for example, if I wanted to see what was going on with active listings in my market, especially given how things have been going, I'm going to go ahead and tap on that. And you see how it's highlighted? Now whatever I enter to the right of that is going to be applied to that template. So let's say I work single family and I work the city of Coral Gables. There it is. And if you want, you can specify single so that there's no confusion, so that you're not getting single and mobile where it says type of property. So I've selected single family. I said city of Coral Gables, type of property single, and I had specified historic count of active listings. On the left hand side, there's a blue button that says generate. I click on generate, and I now have a line graph that's telling me what happened with those active listings. But in the top right corner of that, I also have a tab that says data. If I go into data, I have a table with the actual count. So we just finished closing out April, and we are at 469 listings, whereas in March we had 508. However, if you look year over year, because this does have the breakdown of the last 5 or 6 years, month by month, there wasn't that big of a drop. Okay, so it's still in the same ballpark. You have other templates as well, and you can always go back to the search in the top right corner. And let's say I now wanted to see historic sales by year. I can tap on historic sales, leave the same criteria, click on generate, and now as opposed to seeing the actives, I can see the sales. Again, I have a line graph, but if I click on data, I see the month by month breakdown year over year. Okay, and because 2020 hasn't closed out yet, we don't have those numbers here, but we have 2019 going all the way back to 2014. You also have another really good one that you might want to use is original price versus sold price. This is great to include sometimes in your listing presentations, especially when you have a customer who is insistent that their property is worth more than whatever you're recommending. You can go ahead, plug in the criteria. You can even get hyper specific and do the map search and look within a half mile of their property and tell them, look, this is what's going on in your neighborhood. But I can go ahead and again leave it with the city of Coral Gables single family, click on generate. I have a bar graph, and if I go to data, I'm not going to pay attention to May because May just started. So if I look at April, I see that they were originally listed at 1.2 and they were selling at 905. But it's up from March. March they were selling at about 820. So that price went up. And again, I can use this in a listing presentation. I can use it, for my own benefit to analyze my market. Let's say I wanted to create my own. You can actually go into customize and you can select your time frame. So you can say, year to date, for example. You can select your stat, and they have quite a few. Okay. Let's say number of sales. You can select your chart, column, line, smooth line, area, smooth area. I'm going to go ahead and leave column. You can select a secondary statistic. So maybe I also want to see the sale price, the median sale price. And I can group this by month, by primary year, sale price. I'm going to leave it by month. I go ahead and I click on generate. And now I see what's happened year to date. Again, I'm not going to look at May because we're 6 days into May. But if you look, in March there were 37 sales. In April there were 27 sales. But there was a spike in March. So January 29, February 29. So I can see that there hasn't been a huge dip, even though we've been dealing with extenuating circumstances. Let's say that. If I wanted to save this because maybe I want to run it every month, on the left where it says presets, customize, and save, you would go ahead and just click on save, name it. So maybe I'm going to put, closed sales, and you can name it in English or Spanish. Closed sales for Coral Gables. And I'm going to put 2020 year to date. And I save that copy. And you can also save the search criteria so that everything is saved together. So you can either save the template and leave the criteria blank, or you can save the template with the criteria. So now at the bottom where it says closed sales Coral Gables year to date, anytime I need that information, I just click on it, click on generate, and I can use the criteria, and there we go. It's gonna populate for me. So you can create your own as well. There's another report that you can pull for your stats, and it's called the 1004 MC, and we actually would dive into a search to pull that up. So I'm going to hover over search, and you can do this for sales and rentals, so I want to show you both. And I'm going to start with sales. So you would always select active and closed sales, and in order to pull this report, you need the sales from the last year. And let's say I'm looking at single family single in South Miami. You can do this for a zip code, you can do this for a city. So I'm going to go ahead and say South Miami. You can specify bedroom, bathroom, square footage, price range if you're targeting like a niche market. But I just want to see what's going on with single family homes in South Miami. So I went ahead and I said active closed sales for the last year, so 0-365, single family, single, and then in the center I said South Miami. I go to my results, and the very first thing you need to do once the results load is click on the word all at the top of your results. You need to select all of your results. This report only works for those searches that have 5,000 or less results. So if it has more than 5,000 results, it won't allow you to select this report from your options. So I select them all. I scroll down, and remember, all of your reports are housed under the tab that says print. So I click on print, and the report I'm looking for again is named the 1004 MC. So I click 1004 MC report summary. I can email this. I can click on print to PDF so that I can save it. And what this is telling me is what's going on with that single family market in the city of South Miami. So it's giving me the last year. I've got last May to November, November to February, and February to present day. So it's going in chronological order for the last year, with the most recent information being in that last column. The total number of comparable sales. So in this 3-month period, there have been 25 sales. Compared to the last 3-month period, there were 23 sales. The absorption rate, they tell you in parentheses, is the total number of sales divided by the number of months. So they took 25 divided by 3, and you get an absorption rate of 8.3. You have the total list or the total number of comparable active listings. So there are 59 active listings. The months of housing supply takes those listings, so it's going to take those 59 and divide it by those 8, and we get 7.08. Months of housing supply basically means if the MLS were to close or shut down, based on how this market has been behaving these last 3 months, it would take 7 months to sell the inventory that's currently in the system. If it has less than, 5, it's the simple law of supply and demand. There isn't a lot of supply, so those who have the supply have the power. In that case, it would be the seller. If it's more than 10, 15 months of inventory, there's an excess, and so the buyer has the power there, because if they don't get what they want in one situation, they can just move on to the next, and they have options. Now beneath this, you have the median comparable sale price. So the median price is at $585. Last 3 months it was at $742, so it went down. The sales are occurring in 58 days, so it's taking a little bit longer than it did the last 3 months. They're listing at $825, whereas the prior or the last 3 months before that, they were listing at $811. So that list price has gone up and the sale price has gone down. The comparable listing days on market, those listings that are still active have been on the market 105 days, and the median sale price versus the median list price percentage, they're getting 97.6% of what they're asking for of the list price, not the original price. So this helps you analyze your market. Again, you can even use this in your listing presentation. You're going to have to sit down and explain this to your customer, but you can use this for yourself. You can use this for your listing presentations. It's really up to you. All right. So we have covered the stats. If you wanted to run that same report for rentals, you would go to a rental search, so RNT residential rental. You would use the same exact criteria. So you would say active, you would say closed sales. Now here it's rented. You would switch that to say 0-365. And let's say I wanted to do this for apartments and condos in Miami Beach. I might have a lot. I might have to specify. All right, Miami Beach, over 5,000. So let's use a zip code. Let's use 33130, which is one of the Brickell zip codes. All right, so I have 2,000 matches, a little over 2,000 matches. I'm going to go to results. Remember, the first thing you need to do is click on all, scroll down, click on print, and then look for the report, name the 1004 MC report summary. You select the report, you can tap or click on print to PDF, and then from here I can save it. I can also email it. So this is what rentals look like in that one zip code in Brickell. Okay, they have about 4, almost 5 months of inventory. They're listing at 2,600 and they're renting them at 2,400. So it's not too far of a leap between one and the other, and they're getting 96% of what they're asking for. So they have almost double the amount of active listings. If you look, they're at 469. The 3 months before that, they were at 251. And what they rented went down a little bit, but they're still renting. So there's still movement in that market. All right. The last thing I wanted to show you guys was the speed bar. So the speed bar actually lets you look things up. The speed bar can be used to quickly look things up, hence the name speed bar. So you can actually come in here and you can say, so I can come into the speed bar and I can search for other agents. I can search for open houses, which right now we're virtual, but I can search for open houses. I can actually run an entire search from the speed bar. So if I wanted to look for an agent, I'm going to go ahead and, for example, look for myself. Okay, the person will come up. You just have to type agent in the speed bar and the name of the person. When they come up, you click on their agent ID and you'll see their contact information, and you can even click to see if they have any active listings. You can also, in the speed bar, as I mentioned, search for open houses. I don't know that we're going to see any right now because this is programmed for physical open houses. So let's see. Yep, there we go. So I put OH for open house, I put the date, and it's going to give me a list of all the open houses that are happening. Now, when we do eventually go back to physical, like walk-through open houses, you're not going to be interested in all of these open houses spanning the entire MLS. So what you could do is in the top right corner where it says criteria, you can add fields like zip code so that you can go ahead and narrow it down. When we were housing, or when we were allowing physical face-to-face open houses, every weekend we had well over 1,000 open houses in the entire MLS. And when you are working specific markets or your customers interested in specific areas, you don't need to see all of those. You need to see the ones that are in that zip code or in that area. So you can go ahead and you can add the field of zip code to just kind of narrow it down. The other thing that you can do in the speed bar, I'm going to go back home for a second just to kind of clear everything out. You can actually run an entire search, and this takes a little bit of time to learn to do because it speaks its own abbreviated language. But let's say I were looking for rentals. I'm going to go ahead and in the speed bar type in RNT, and I'm looking in 33131, and I need it to be a condo that has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and I want the rental to be $2,000 or less. I can go ahead, hit enter, and I chose a very popular zip code, but get all of my results. So what I typed up here, doesn't matter what order you type it in. I typed RNT for rentals. I said a zip code. You can use a city. I said a condo with 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, less than $2,000. I could have specified, you know, a price range instead of saying a minimum or a maximum. Sorry, I put an extra symbol in there. You know, and kind of narrow it down that way as well. But this, it takes some time to get used to. Matrix, it speaks its own language. But right next to it, or right within it, you see that there's a little gray circle with a question mark. I can go ahead and click on that, and I get a pop-up that explains the speed bar, how to use it, and what kind of language I should use within it. So again, it's like a little how-to cheat sheet. You can go ahead and find that by clicking on that small gray circle with the question mark. All right, that is officially the end of Matrix 301. I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat. Okay, so I have 2 questions that came in back to back. Can you go over the second way to create a CMA again? And Miami Realtors YouTube, what lessons teach us about? So it's not the Miami Realtors Association channel, it's the Miami Trainers channel. And for Market Watch, that would be Matrix 201. To create your CMA, the second way, you would just jump straight into a search, run your search. So I'm just going to pull up some search results. Okay, so you run your search, you get your results. You pick your comparables, so you're going to go ahead and check off your comparables, and there is a button that says CMA at the bottom. Same place where you would go to click on email or print. You would just click on CMA, and that takes you straight into the report, and you know how it goes from here. Just follow step by step each of your tabs. The first way to create the CMA would be from My Matrix, My CMAs, and then at the bottom of the screen, well, for me at the bottom, but depending on how many CMAs you have, there's a button that says Start a New CMA. So someone is asking how you can find comparables to price a rental. That's an entire class, but the synopsis would be you can run a search for rentals, and it's the same process that I use for the sales, except here you would do active, active with contract, pending, and rented for the last 6 months, and it is the same exact process from here on out. But you're targeting or you're looking at your rentals, so you have to go through a rental search. And be mindful of the fact that when you're working with condos, whether it's a sale or a rental, with condos you need to look at things like what floor they're located on. That's a big deal for condos. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for being a member. Please stay safe. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out.